family members and caregivers, so welcome, welcome, welcome to our school committee meeting this evening. So good evening and happy holidays. December is here, marking the beginning of the holiday season for many different religious denominations and cultures. Many members of our local Jewish community will begin the observance of Hanukkah for 8 nights beginning this Thursday evening. Hanukkah, sometimes called the Festival of Lights, is timely and welcome, coinciding with some of the shortest, darkest days of December. Regardless of your religious beliefs, this is the perfect time to seek some extra light and warmth to your dark evenings. So we have many wonderful ongoing holiday fundraisers, and I just want to take a moment to recognize them. Our wonderful band members that are here, they are still selling Christmas trees and holiday wreaths. This particular fundraiser is a personal favorite of mine. I get to pick a tree and with my daughter and pick some wreaths, and if you can get out there, they're wonderful quality trees and wreaths. And I'm not receiving any commission for this wonderful shout out to the band fundraiser, but it is great. It happened this weekend and next weekend. So Saturday and Sunday, come out between 10 and 4. You can buy a tree or a wreath, and it takes place in the Medford High School parking lot. Again, all proceeds will benefit our wonderful award-winning band and color guard team. Also, we have our sophomore class at the high school. They're working with modern pastry this holiday season. And again, if you want to avoid the crazy lines in the stores, please put in an order. I shared the link last week in my Friday memo. All orders will be accepted until December 14th, and all proceeds will support our sophomore class. Also, just for those of you who are here and for the Medford community at large, if you've been anywhere near the McGlynn Andrews Complex campus, the McGlynn playground has fencing around it right now, and that's for everyone's safety. So we're really excited because the McGlynn School Playground is going to be our new universally accessible schoolyard. So there aren't many in Massachusetts, but it's going to be universally accessible. And I do believe we'll have a lot of visitors from neighboring communities coming to use our new park because it's accessible for all of our young people. So the construction was originally scheduled to begin in the spring. However, the timetable got moved up, and demolition is going to be taking place this week with the hope of still completing the playground on time. And if we're lucky, they might even finish a little early. So while the construction is taking place, the playground will be closed to the public during construction. That's the sad bit of news, I know, for our young folk, but it needs to be closed because it's no longer safe. So we do know that it was short notice, but we were given short notice, and as quickly as we found out, we turned around and made sure that we communicated that to the community. So if the McGlynn playground was your playground of choice, you now have many other options: Harris Playground, Magoon Playground, Logan, and the newly renovated Morrison Playground. So there are many other options nearby. Work will be taking place between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. And we are working with the construction company, so we want to make sure that we minimize disruption to arrival and dismissal times when you're dropping off and picking up your children. So please, keep us in the loop, let us know. I do want to extend a very special thank you to our mayor, Brianna Longo-Kern, and to the Medford School Committee. We want to thank City Hall staff, teachers, our staff in the schools, and administrators. We want to thank our family community partners, and we also want to thank Shanine Peloquin, who is a parent and a great advocate and expert in the area of playgrounds, lending her expertise to really help us get the best playground possible for our students. So we thank all of you and the community at large for your support. Also, another important update for the community, it's about our elementary literacy screening. Elementary caregivers and families are invited to join our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Suzanne Galusi over there, and our literacy coach, Kristen Howell, for a presentation on early literacy screening for elementary students. You may have already received a message from Ms. Galusi and your students' elementary school about results of your students' screening results, and the presentation that will take place will be an excellent presentation, and it's going to happen tomorrow, Wednesday. Tomorrow's Tuesday, correct. Wednesday, December 6th at 6:30 p.m. in the McGlynn School Library. Again, this Wednesday, December 6th, at the McGlynn School Library. It's on the second floor. There will be an in-person presentation to really help families unpack the assessment. So thank you, Ms. Galusi, and thank you, Ms. Howell, for the presentation that you'll be doing this week. And we just want you to know that administering the universal screening, it's crucial to promoting reading success for every child. And we value our partnership with you. Just on a side, today I was in a McGlynn School kindergarten classroom, and I got to see some students reading, their early readers. They were so excited. I think I was more excited because I'm like, oh, it's only December 4th and you're reading. So our students are doing wonderful things. So have your little ones read to you at home and encourage early literacy and reading. I also just want our listening audience to know that kindergarten registration, which is critically important for us to have accurate numbers of students that are going to be coming to Medford Public Schools next year, that kindergarten registration is going to begin next month in January. So we start in January and it continues for a few months. But if some of you remember, we did have a surprise this summer at the 11th hour. We had a lot of kindergarten students come and register, and we were forced to open additional classrooms, with a very, very short turnaround. So please be on the lookout for those kindergarten registration opportunities, and we will be providing childcare and interpretation services. So again, the first event will be taking place on January 16th. There are a few important upcoming events that are going to be happening district-wide. On December 5th, which is tomorrow, there is a financial planning webinar with the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority at 7 o'clock on Zoom. Please go to the Medford High School website, or you can contact Stacy Schulman for additional information. So for juniors, for seniors, parents who want to find out information, and possibly if you have even a freshman or a sophomore and you're an early planner, take advantage of this college financial planning webinar. December 7th, as I said earlier, it will mark the first night of Hanukkah. So happy Hanukkah to our Jewish friends, families, and neighbors. December 13th and 14th, our wonderful band once again, and our orchestra holiday concerts are going to be taking place at Medford High School at 7 p.m. Save the date, mark your calendars, charge your telephones, get ready to take nice pictures and video, record them as well. So December 13th and 14th, save those dates. So I'm going to just share with you a quick overview of what's going to happen this evening. Tonight, in addition to welcoming and recognizing our wonderful band and color guard students, we're also going to hear a wonderful presentation from the Missatuck Elementary School today by Principal Kathleen Kay, and she's here with her assistant principal, Miss Nancy Sherman Hudson. And we're also going to hear a wonderful presentation from the principal of the Andrews Middle School, Principal Miss Jennifer Skane, and her assistant principal, Miss Farah Lally, is here as well. So we look forward to hearing both of your presentations this evening. We're also going to hear a presentation this evening by Ms. Galusi, Mr. DeLeva, and Dr. Bernadette Riccadelli about our district's NWEA map results. So that's our, again, in-district assessment. I want to just go now and recognize, because we're getting ready to tee up for our wonderful band members in color guard. Last month, our Mustangs placed not third, not second, but first place at the NESBA finals. Can we give them a round of applause? We are so proud of you. They received a platinum medal, and in addition to being the New England Division II champs, they also took home an award for Best Music, Best Visual, Best Overall Effect, and Best Color Guard. This is a first in Medford band history, and as a community, we're so proud to celebrate these exemplary Mustang musicians and performers. Can we give them one more round of applause? So in recognition of this huge accomplishment, we're very pleased to present each of our students with a certificate on behalf of the entire Mustang community. Many thanks to Ms. Haley Wello, Coordinator of Fine Arts and Band Director, and Ms. Jackie Gaffney, Assistant Band Director, for their hard work in supporting the band program, and our deepest gratitude to the parents, caregivers, and families of our band and color guard students for being their biggest fans and boosters. So thank you to all of you. At this time, I'd like to present with Mayor Longo Kern, each student with their certificate, and then we'll figure out a way to take a photo with the entire school committee. So please hold your applause if you can until all the names have been read, because I do believe we have 48 wonderful students to recognize. Elijah Adamick. Oh, I apologize. Do you want us to go down or let them come up? I think the microphones. Gian Artadis. Nobutaka Ashihara. Kenza Balula. Elena Bruno. Okay. Michaela Callahan. Mandy Chow. Andrew Colbert. Lucia Sataki. And Christine Deshotel. Lucia. Ann Dukes. Charlotte Foti. Margaret Fowler.
Not here.
Oops. Topper Fowler. Davis Freimark. Yes. Violet Freimark. Gavin Gagne. And Gemma Giudino. Gagny. Thank you, Gavin. I thought it was French. My bad. Julia Halam Baker. And Sydney Hamill. Benjamin Hayes. Alexander Hopper. Talia Ingano. Lennox LaFleur. And Kian Lau. Marcella Lucas. And Carmela McGordy. Charles Malone. Harrison Lima. Declan Mastone. Nevin Mastone.
On our way? Okay. We'll see.
Rowan Mastone. Aya Najar. And Maeve Nicholas. Addison Mitchie. And Isabel Oliveira. Deja Parkinson. And Bethia Pierce. Lindsay Quinn. And Nathan Quinn. Desiderio Sessa. Madela Wait Takeli. And Stanley Tang. Magdalowit. Benjamin Wars. And Jonas Wars. Jane Wyman. And Sarah Youssef. Margia Zasra. Maria, I apologize.
Quick round of applause to our superintendent.
And to our band and color guard.
You guys want to come up
Yes.
here? You should get up here. You should get up here.
Oh, all 7 of us, okay.
You want to come right in here? Well, first you three come this way. Get it this way. This is a lift. You guys come up here.
So that we can,
Band members, come inside. Come right in here. Band and color guard, right down here. Erica, come on up. Yeah, come this way. Yep. Yep, right in front. Cover that camera up. Yep. Tall people in the back. Can have a row of people kneeling.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Aaron and I are working on a microphone. No, I talk on the microphone and then
Thank you, Superintendent, for your updates, and congratulations again to the Mustang Marching Band and our Color Guard. I'd like to welcome School Committee-elect Erica Reinfeld and Aaron Alapade. Thanks for joining us. I know you'll probably be here tonight and on the 18th, so 2 meetings to get right in January, right? Welcome. I'm not sure if we have any student representatives, Dr. Cushing? Not yet. We don't know. Okay. But I just wanted to say hello if we did. So thank you. Next up, we have number 3, Missatuck Elementary School and Andrews School, Middle
Mayor?
School updates. Yes.
We skipped over item 5, the consent agenda. It was on the front page.
Oh, geez. Okay. My apologies. Revert back to the regular order of business, to consent agenda. We have bills and payrolls and regular school committee meeting minutes from November 20th, 2023. Is there a motion for approval of the consent agenda? Motion for approval by Member McLaughlin, seconded by Member Kretz. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Now to number 3, under reports of superintendent. It's the Missatuck Elementary School and Andrews Middle School updates. We have Ms. Kathy Kay, Missatuck Principal, and Ms. Jennifer Skane, Andrews Middle School Principal. Welcome. Come on up one at a time or both together, depending on how you have it planned.
Yes, Missatuck is first. And Ms. Sherman Hudson, you're more than welcome to. She's here. Thank you for being here tonight.
So thank you so much for inviting me to show all the things that have happened at the Missatuck and are planned to happen moving forward. None of which would be possible without the amazing PTO that the Missatuck has, as well as the dedicated staff that work at the Missatuck Elementary School. And so one of which is here, Mr. Sherman Hudson, who is my right and left hand, sometimes my toes when needed. And also David Wynn came with me. He is on the Missatuck School Council, so he wanted to support tonight as well. So thank you so much, and hope you like what you see. So there's our school, and here's what's happening. So we always start the year off with our kindergarten playground. And on August 22nd, the kindergarten had their, and then usually the next week, the PTO runs one for the grades 1 through 5. So how's that?
Yes.
Okay, so they get to meet one another once again, just to kind of get reacquainted and have some fun on the playground. And again, you're going to hear me say Missatuck PTO quite a lot because they really help us in amazing ways. One exciting thing we did at the Missatuck last spring was we did a pilot screening program. So the students who had registered for kindergarten came in and they were able to meet with teachers. So we were able to do that screening before school began. And it really did help us with placement. There are many days that Mr. Sherman Hudson and I say, wow, we're really glad we did this. So I would strongly recommend if we could do it moving forward, 2 thumbs up. The next event we did on September 8th, and this is where normally we do it in the gym, but it was a really, really hot day. So we went out onto the playground, the whole entire school, kindergarten through 5th grade, and the teachers circled around the students out on our blacktop area. And then what the teachers do, because I want the students to know everybody in the building, and so they introduce the person to their left. So that teacher then has to kind of say hello and get acquainted again, and they've already done that because it was September 8th. But they tell something nice about that person to the whole student body. And so as you can see, they're laughing, they were having a good time. We passed around a megaphone, and hardly anyone wanted to use it. So there were teachers who didn't need it, but there were some who did. Then in September, the PTO helps us organize our ice cream social. So it's the PTO ice cream social. And as you can see, we have, well, when the slide changes, hopefully soon, you can see that they have parents who help serve ice cream, and a lot of our students who went to the Missatuck come back almost every year. We kind of urge them with, you can have free ice cream if you come as well. So That usually works out well. And then you can see they're having fun, and that was me in the middle. I took a selfie with some of the kids with my big, huge camera, so they got a kick out of that. And then the PTO sets up where they can do like a photo booth. So I usually have a lot of fun there as well. The next event that took place was on October 4th. We do 2 a year, and I do believe a lot of the other schools participate in this as well. In October, it's a National Walk Ride to School Day. And again, the PTO gets really involved. What we do to get all the students involved who want to be is I go around the corner and I meet the kids on the bus. They get off the bus and then they walk up the street. We have parent volunteers to make sure everyone's safe, to have a little bit of a walk. And then what the PTO does is they write, which you can see, I'm going to say it wrong, I'm sure, Buen Trabajo, on the ground in Spanish and Portuguese to kind of welcome those kids into, celebrating our diversity at our school. And then the PTO waits at the school and they kind of have the kids sign in their name and their teacher's name. And then what they do is they decide, well, they count up, and by the end of the day, they let me know which class had the most participants. So they get the Golden Shoe Award, which you can see is one of the child's old sneaker that they just painted gold. But the kids really like it. And Mrs. Schramowitz's class, 4th grade, they were the winners this year. So I took a picture of them. In October, we did a story night and a PTO book fair. This one was by Scholastic, and you can see the amount of the total sales that we made. Quite a lot, over $9,000, almost 10. And then some of that money comes back to us in Scholastic dollars. So we were able there. Sometimes the PTO will buy rugs or the movable chairs, or even just books for the library using those PTO dollars. And then on the same evening, we had teachers, high school students, Mrs. Ingrid Mancada, who was here before, and we read stories to the children who came to our rooms in English, Portuguese, Haitian, Creole, and Spanish. The next event we had was on October 25th, and this was a pilot program at our school that was brought to me by Hendrik Gideons, and he visited with me over the summer, and we planned it out where he's doing this not-for-profit organization called Down by the Riverside, and the email address is there if anybody wants to check it out. And he has partnered up with Willie J. Laws, who is a Black veteran, and he's a lifetime blues musician. He grew up in Texas and he tours all over the nation, but he has settled here in Massachusetts. What he did was, with Mr. Gideons, they gave 2 45-minute sessions, so the entire school was able to participate. They focused on using music as a way to create connections between people and our communities. And so Mr. Laws also shared his own experiences at being a master performer in an intimate setting within our school. And Mr. Gideons also sent me a link of some of that program, but it was 4 minutes long, and it also came today. So I'd share it with Dr. Edward Vincent. If she wants to share it with you, then you could take a look at that. In October, many of you are already aware, I usually invite you every year to come to the school to read to the classes. For Jumpstart Read for the Record, I've been looking daily to see if the record has been broken yet. They're giving me lots of other email, but I haven't found out yet. Where it's become such a big organization that I don't know that we break the record anymore. But it's a lot of fun because the community members come in and they read to our lower students, and then the upper students read to the kids in the middle grades. And then I run around like a crazy person and I take pictures. So you can see some of the famous people who participated this year. And the book was With Lots of Love by Jenny Sanchez Torres. And I think the kids really enjoyed it. So thank you for everyone who volunteered their time. And to those of you who couldn't, I understand, busy lives. So one of the things that I've been doing for the past 12 years, because this is my 12th year at the Mississauga/Columbus Elementary School, we do weekly awards, and we call them Works of Wonder. I no longer post them as WOW because I got an email from a company in England who said that that was trademarked. But if I called it Works of Wonder, we were good to go. So that's what we do. Basically what happens is every week, Mrs. Sherman Hudson and I run around, the teachers submit something wonderful that a child has done. And they just go, wow, that was really good. And so we give them a certificate, we give them a crazy little handshake and a pencil, and the kids smile. They really, really smile from ear to ear. And sometimes they'll say, wow, this is my 5th one. And they're just so excited and proud to get it. It hangs on the refrigerator, and we do give them to staff and community members as well. So you may have been on the receiving end of those. And if you have, thank you for whatever you've done for the Mississauga. We also do a monthly called Conduct and Citizenship. And those are for the students who stand out just a little bit further by being responsible, respectful, and safe, following the school rules as often as they can throughout the month. And so the teacher submits one child, so there are 10 winners a year, and they get things like a ribbon. They get to cut the lunch line if they're getting school lunch. They sit on the stage with myself and some friends. We play games. I get to know them. And I take a picture. I post it to the website. And they get to help us pick the next Spirit Day. So it kind of takes a little bit of the pressure off of me. Nancy and I count the votes. This one's going to be Pajama Day. Anybody who wants to participate, it's the end of December. This year, for the first time, which I do have to admit, I heard at another school's meeting, we did PTO trunk and treat. And what the PTO did was they invited family members to decorate their cars and their trunks and dress up in costumes and offer candy to the kids. And over 200 people came from the Mississauga and the greater community to trick or treat in the Mississauga parking lot. And the kids had a great time. The PTO also supports cultural events every year with the amazing help of Mrs. Christina McGordy. She pretty much organizes this for everybody. And as you can see on the list of events, every grade has at least one that has come in. The Afro-Brazilian martial arts, music, and dance came for the whole school, and they did 2 sessions again, and I'm really glad that they did not ask me to come up on stage and try that with them, when, as you can see in the picture, I wouldn't have been able to do that. Curious Creatures came in not that long ago on the 17th of November for kindergarten. And in the picture, you can see that Jabari has a snake around his neck. That's real. They passed around it, well, they didn't pass around. The person from Curious Creatures held the animals. But the kids were able to touch a turtle. That's a ferret that Jack has in his hand. And then in the left corner, you can kind of see that's not the turtle's head. That was a bearded dragon she put on the turtle's back. And it wouldn't stay on, but it kind of made a pretty cool picture, I thought. Right before Thanksgiving, 2 of our classes, Miss Changelian and Miss Penta, they did a FAMS giving celebration. And so they invited the parents to come in, or grandparents, whoever could come, with their own food. So we didn't have to worry about any allergies or anything like that. They sat down at a really big table and they just shared their snack and then just celebrated. The kids made placemats for their parents and told what they were thankful for. And it was really a sweet, sweet event. Again, the Mississauga PTO sponsors so many things at our school, and here's a list of some of them. Book fairs, we've already had one. There'll be another one, Porter Square. This year, for the first time, we are doing closed caption in our PTO virtual meetings, and they've chosen, you can only do one language, so they've chosen Portuguese because that tends to be the largest population of speakers in our school. And many of the others are listed. We did have our village craft fair this Saturday, which was wonderful, and I'm happy to say I'm almost done with my Christmas shopping. Thank you to the PTO. Once again, they helped me in my life. The Who's Reading is always a wonderful event, and it's always very well participated, so that's exciting too. And then, you know, a lot of schools do a Teacher Appreciation Day or week. PTO does a month, so that's pretty spectacular. The PTO also helps fund field trips that we go on, and so I just listed for you some of the places that the school will be going on. Again, they help pay for at least one trip for every grade level, and so you'll see that everyone's represented there. And then, of course, the district is offering us many training opportunities this year. And again, you'll see the list: bullying, Hill for Literacy, ECRI training, HMH, that's our new reading program, literacy coaching, data analysis with the help of Mr. Paul DeLeva, which I'm so happy he's housed in my building, the science of reading, and then ST Math. And so on the next page, I just thought it might be fun to see a picture of Gigi. Mrs. Carabates is going to be our ST Math champion. So she's going to be creating a bulletin board in the library, because the kids go there all the time, so they can see their stats and how far they're going. It's a spatial temporal program, and it helps the children use their reasoning to solve mathematical problems. And they use it in class, and they can use it at home. And then last year, Gigi was supposed to come. It was going to be a costume that I was going to put on. So it didn't happen, but hopefully that'll happen this year. And I think what we're going to try and do is get a little Gigi stuffed animal, and then the class who has the most, we can kind of pass that around, like the sneaker. And then we have more events that are coming. They haven't happened yet, but we'll have our winter concert, which we always video record. This year at the Mississauga, we're going to try something new. We're going to call it I don't know, we might change the name, but basically it's a specialist showcase. So the gym teacher will be there, the art teacher, the music teacher, the Nexus teacher, and the librarian. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. And they'll just kind of show the families some of the things that they may have done throughout the year that the children are learning in their classes, and that will be in the spring. There'll be a spring walk bike to school. We always have a 5th grade volleyball game, students versus the teachers, and the students don't always win, but most of the time they do. We do a fun day that, again, the PTO helps really fund and support with their man, woman, person power. And the PTO does an end of the year dance party, which is always a lot of fun for the kids. So thank you for listening. And does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We
Thanks.
appreciate the presentation. Yes. Good job. Welcome, Ms. Kane. Thank you.
Good morning, good evening.
Good evening.
If I put these on, I can see you, but I can't see this, so. So thank you, good evening. So it's kind of fitting that I'm here this evening because today is actually my 90th workday in the district. And I'm pleased to say that it has been an amazing, rewarding experience getting to know all of the Medford Public School systems and students and families, and I am eager to continue that work with staff and families in order to make a positive difference in the community. So I just started out with some numbers. Our current enrollment is about 455 students. We've seen a lot of students join us at the start of the school year, transferring to our school. And we've had some success in making sure that they transition successfully through support of our guidance program. And we're looking to even start a student mentor program where students can help mentor students that are starting at our school. Our honor roll for this first quarter, it was pretty amazing. And if you add up all that numbers and do the math, it's about 76% of our students made honor roll, either honors or high honors this particular quarter. Our teachers, we have 60 educators, either core educators, exploratory teachers, physical education, our special education teachers, and then we have about 20 support staff. So those are our counselors, et cetera. And I have to say that I think I have one of the best staff in the district, but I'll fight you. So in the classroom, we've been pretty active in the classroom. Oh, I didn't do attendance. I'm sorry. Let me just add that we do have it's about 95.4. I'm ready to get that up over that 95 so I can highlight up to 96. But that's my goal. I would like to get 96% attendance by the end of the school year and then maybe even increase that next year. We'll see. So yes, attendance, and very excited to say at least 133 students had perfect attendance. So that's pretty amazing. So in the classroom, our students have been working pretty hard at learning some new skills, taking the skills they've already learned. So I just highlighted a few of the things that we have done in 7B. Our students in our social studies curriculum did a compare and contrast essay in Miss O'Donoghue's class, and they had to take countries' literacy skills and different points of research for different countries, and then they had to compare and contrast, and they did this over a multi-unit lesson. And then the students were actually able to post their lessons in one of the bulletin boards in the main lobby, and students could select if they wanted to identify themselves to their colleagues and other students. So many of the students did choose to put their names on their paper and identify their hard work. So that was pretty exciting. For Veterans Day, our students in Mr. Tremonti's class worked on the entire school all week. We had done some what does Veterans Day mean, and try and highlight the different aspects of what Veterans Day incorporates. And then one of the culminating was that students were invited through Operation Gratitude to write letters to veterans members and current members serving in the military. I'm pleased to say we sent out 98 letters that will be sent off to current military members. And we also, students decided to make some poppies and decorated one of the boards in the main lobby. So those are there highlighting some of our current staff members, family members who are also veterans, so that's pretty nice. We also, I know Kathy mentioned ST Math, so we're pretty excited that we have a grant that is allowing for 75 math licenses for our 8th grade students, and the district is going to pick up the additional so that all of our 8th grade students can use ST Math, which is a conceptual math program where students will be able to use that to not only build in some remediation skills, but also enrichment if they are ready to extend their learning. Let's see, what else we got? Yeah, it's all too little. So the pictures on the right are our Global Scholars Program. So Global Scholars is an opportunity for our 7th grade civics students to have the opportunity to work with students from all over the world. They decide on a topic of interest, and then they work with students about how they might solve that problem, utilizing different cultures and different techniques from all over the world. So they may be on a Zoom conference with students in Spain or, you know, another country. And then the woman, Natalie Boyo from the wildlife came in and spoke to our students, and they went out on a walk and they looked at the Mystic River watershed, and they're incorporating that into their problem that they're solving this year. So that's pretty exciting as well. Next slide. So when I started at the Andrews, I met with parents, I met with staff members, I met with families, I met with students, and I also met with other administrators from across the district. Two things that were highly encouraged for me was to build fun and enrichment opportunities for the students, and also increase communication. So two of the things that I have done is we have a weekly newsletter that we post and I send to all families on Friday evening, just kind of highlighting what the students are doing or what's coming up for them. Also, you know, we put in there all of our PTO events because we have a very strong PTO. The PTO, I feel like I lost a page here. The PTO has had several successful events so far this year. We had a pie fundraiser, which I have to say, I got the chocolate intensity pie for Thanksgiving. It was to die for. And we're doing a Gut Sneakers fundraiser and a donation campaign. And we also had an opportunity to host a family night where Kevin, a gentleman who runs lots of families, we played Family Feud and we played bingo, and the kids had a lot of fun. And I lost, but that's okay. And then tonight we had a restaurant night at the Ford Tavern, and we have one tomorrow night too. And obviously all of these events are to raise funds to help support some of the enrichment opportunities, as well as the other thing that I was asked to bring back, which is field trips and dances. So we've already had, I feel like I missed something here. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, so, and then we had curriculum night at the start of the year, which we invited students to come and help serve as leaders for the school so that they would help show the parents around the school. The students really enjoyed that opportunity to step up. They showed their pride in their school to their families as well. So that was really fun. Some of the pictures you see here, the item on the bottom was that we decided that we would ask people to bring their desserts to family night, and we asked them to bring something from their culture. So we got to try lots of different cultural desserts that evening, and I had some Brazilian chocolate balls, which I have to say, I asked her if I could have some for Christmas. Next slide. So student activities, we are very lucky to say that we have had such a high turnout for students that want to be involved in our student activities, that at the start of the year with several of our advisors, I had to do some planning with them. How would we fit all those students safely. Volleyball, we had about 120 students turn out, and we were like, we can't do that in one particular afternoon, so we had to do it by grade every other week. We've just had a new staff member start at our school, so I'm pleased to say that we're going to have our own Andrews Middle School GSA club that starts next week. We have had an extremely successful CCSR so far. We have over 60 kids in the CCSR club, and we have done 2 very successful programs under the direction of Melanie North and Marissa Isbell. And the first one is that they raised over $300 in October by painting faces for students. The students loved it, and the monies were sent for breast cancer research. And the second was we had an extremely successful Thanksgiving food drive, which allowed us to make 36 baskets for families. That the baskets are a huge laundry basket filled with everything you might have imagined, plus money, gift card for a turkey and all the fixings and the paper plates and all the goods. And we had so many that we were able to reach out to the McGlynn Middle School. We supported students and families from the Andrews Middle School. We sent some to the senior center and also to the community refrigerator, is that what it's called? The community refrigerator. So that was a very successful day, very active day at the school. So student life, that was the next thing that I was asked to kind of take a peek at. Can you switch the slide for me? So we had our first Spirit Week in October. It started with Pajama Day. I have to say that was my favorite day of the year, to wear pajamas to work. And then I dressed up with the kids and I was Weird Barbie, which I had never even known about until that particular day. Yep. Oh, no, we don't share those. And then we had a day where the students dressed like the teachers and the teachers dressed like the students. That was quite entertaining. And then showing your Mustang pride and showing your favorite team support. And what we did was we asked the teachers to take points and tally the most school spirit team, and that was our 6B team. So the day before Thanksgiving, you can see a picture of them. We went down to the cafeteria and the PTO helped me purchase some pizza for those kids, and they had a nice pizza lunch before they headed off for the Thanksgiving recess. We have a pretty active and successful National Junior Honor Society. Our students at the start of the year had to write their own speech, get up in front of their peers, present their speeches, and be elected to office for the NGHS, which I think is pretty difficult to do as a middle school student, and was super proud of them. We do have 3 field trips already planned. So next, on December 20th, the 6th grade is going to see The Lightning Thief at the Stoneham Theater. In the spring, the 7th grade is going to see A Wrinkle in Time at the Wheelock Theater. And in the 8th grade, we'll go to Canopy Lake and have a little bit of fun before they head off to the high school. We also had a 6th grade dance in October where all the students wore neon and there were neon bracelets, and it was extremely successful. This Friday night, Principal Tucci and I and Miss Lally and Miss Bruno will be at the McGlynn again. We're going to have an 8th grade dance called Winter Wonderland. And then in March, we're going to have the 7th grade dance, and we haven't thought about a theme yet, but I'm sure the PTO will come up with something wonderful. So a couple of other things that we'll be doing in the upcoming weeks is during our WIN block. We have been fortunate that the Massachusetts Partnership for Youth is going to be able to present us 2 different opportunities for students to have some educational time. One is January, the 7th grade will have a presentation on vaping, and one is in February, the 8th grade will have an opportunity for kind of the dangers of social media, and unfortunately, something that they have to be aware of is sexting. So we're going to talk about that and the dangers that can come from that. And then we also have had the opportunity to do Start with Hello and Say Something, which are both programs through the Sandy Hook Foundation. We did the I Decide survey and we had some staff trained this year. So we're looking at how we can implement if we have any students that need support through substance abuse. And we're doing the SBIRT screening this December 13th. So that's all coming up pretty quick too. We had a staff meeting today and it was very nice for me to be able to say at 90 days, where are we going? Who do we want to be at the Andrews Middle School? So we did some visioning and brainstorming and decided some of our next steps as a school and how we're going to approach that together. So that's pretty exciting. So thank you for having me. Does anyone have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay,
Great
great.
presentation.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Thank you, all four of you, for being here. Happy holidays. All five of you, sorry. Next up, we have the NWEA map presentation by Ms. Suzanne Galusi, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Mr. Paul DeLeva, Executive Director of Data and Reporting, and Dr. Bernadette Riccadelli, Director of Professional Learning and Assessment. Welcome, thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to wait 1 minute. Is it okay if I just wait 1 minute for? Okay, good evening. Thank you. I'm just going to welcome Dr. Bernadette Riccadelli and Paul DeLeva. They're going to do the bulk of the presentation. We do have, I believe, joining us, Faiza Khan, Director of Math. If at the end there are any questions for the Director of Math. Dr. Nicole Chiesa, Director of Humanities, will be joining us shortly. And unfortunately, Rocco Sieri, the Director of Science, I believe this is his soccer banquet. I think he has his banquet this evening for the soccer team. So he will not be here in attendance. But we want to thank you very much for your time. And I'm going to pass this to Bernadette Riccadelli.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. So nice to see you and welcome to the newly elected members. It's wonderful to have you here with us. So tonight we're presenting a little differently. So I am going to be actually controlling the slide projection from here because if the members had an opportunity to go through the presentation, you're going to see that there are links embedded in and it takes you to specific data points. So we're trying something a little bit new with this tonight, at least for me. So again, Mr. Paul DeLeva is here with me. Several of us worked on analyzing the results of the latest MAP growth testing over the past month. Originally, we were slated to present to the committee on November 20th, and then that was delayed a little bit. So we took another look and another look and another look, and even as late as Friday, we were making some adjustments. So in terms of the agenda tonight for us, a little adjustment here. We are going to be talking about the test itself. So many of you are aware of what the test entails, the overview, but for those of you that are new and for people watching from home, we're going to provide some information on the test itself and its design. We're going to take a look at some results. We're going to take a look at the data utilization, because that is what is important. How do we use the data that is yielded? And then lastly, there'll be some appendix information with more data that is available to you. Okay. All right, so let's first start with an overview of the test. So what is MAP growth? So MAP stands for Measures of Academic progress. And it measures what students know regardless of what grade they're in. It allows us as administrators and for teachers in the classroom to look at growth over time. And that is really what's important. We want to see what their growth is. It is computer adaptive. And what that means is that the questions change as the student answers the question. So if a student answers a question correctly, the next question has a little bit more difficulty. And the opposite is true. If the student answers the question incorrectly, the next one is a little bit easier. So it's important to note, unlike MCAS, this is adaptive. So it's not, the students in a class don't have the same questions, right? So that's a really important point, because that really differentiates a lot of the other type of summative and formative assessments that we use. And then what is a RIT score? A RIT score is really important. And in a couple of slides, I'm going to go over what a norm RIT is. So a RIT is a standard score. Okay, it reflects the student's academic knowledge, skills, and abilities. It's stable. It's like marking height on a growth chart. That's the typical way that it is described. And it provides a student's percentile ranking and conditional growth percentile. And it really can show how much the student has achieved in comparison with their peers. So this is a very widely used test. So we're talking about over 16 million students are tested each year. Over 9,000 school systems use the MAP growth system, 9 state systems. Massachusetts is not one of them. Massachusetts leaves it up to individual districts. Medford obviously has opted in. Over 50,000 schools, and it is also given in 149 countries. So again, it is pretty broadly used. Yes.
Member Russo?
Yes, thank you. Is the 14 million students, is that worldwide or within the US?
Those numbers are the 16.2 million
Sorry, yes.
students. That's worldwide.
Oh, thank you.
So we administer the test 3 times a year, and you can see the different levels, the different subjects. In general, we're talking about September, January, and May. You can see the specific dates there. Obviously, we try to vary it a little bit, but in general, 3 times a year during those months. All right, now moving on to the MAP test result, which is, I think, what the committee really wanted to hear tonight, among other things. All right, so before we go into the actual data, it is important because the way that we have presented the data to you, we have measured Medford scores against the RIT or the Roche 2020 norm scores. So Medford's district, school, and race ethnicity subgroup data is compared to these 2020 MAP national norms in this report. Okay, not 2023, but 2020. And the reason is because these norms are done every few years. They're not done every year. So they conduct norming studies every 3 to 5 years to provide the best and most up-to-date information about student achievement and growth. The 2020 norms describe achievement and growth trends for the US public school student population in language usage, mathematics, reading, and science over the 15-16, 16-17, and 17-18 school years. All right, so that's just important for you to know. We're talking about pre-pandemic numbers. When we look at Medford's numbers compared to the norm, the national norm, we're talking about that 15-16, 16-17, 17-18 data that got compiled into the 2020 norm numbers that came out. The results are based on K-12 grade level samples. Records are sampled between 3.6 and 5.5 million test scores, from 500,000 to 700,000 students attending over 24,500 public schools in 5,800 districts and spread across all 50 states. So these norms are based on public school data, not private school data. It's rigorous sampling. As we know, when we're going to make projections about data, it is important that the sample be wide, and we can see with the numbers it is wide, and they try to make it as representative as possible to the public school population. All right, so looking at some data here, you can see that we have in blue, we have the ELA. Sorry, okay. You can see in blue, we have the ELA mean RIT data. We have national numbers and we have district numbers. In yellow, we have math, and in green, we have science. So for ELA, in grades 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9, the mean RIT scores in Medford were higher than the national mean RIT score. In math, you can see the grades 1, 4, 9, and 10 mean RIT scores were higher than the national mean RIT score. And in science, we're looking at all grades tested in the district had a mean RIT score higher than the national norm.
Thank you. I just had a quick question. So when we're looking at those scores, what's a significant difference? So we've got, just looking at second grade, we've got 172.35 for the national, and we're at 175.8. Is that significant? Is 3 points a significant difference? I found myself wondering that as I was looking through the scores. I don't really have a good handle on that.
So I'm not sure that I have an answer for you on that. I think that question has been raised in the past, I think by Mr. Rousseau, who I think has in the past asked about statistically significant numbers on MCAS differences. I can't answer that question. It's difficult to do the comparison. It's a little bit easier to do comparison with MCAS numbers. It is a little bit more difficult with MAP, because the only thing we can really compare it to is that 2020 mean RIT score. So we're not saying here that because we're above in these areas, it's great news. It's an observation to make. So again, I will go back to when we look at these MAP growth scores on the district level, on the school level, on the classroom level, what's really meaningful for us and what we think is really meaningful for students as families is when we look at those individual student reports. And we can see the growth of an individual student. We can look at the reports, and Mr. DeLeva is going to go over some of the reports. We can look at a report and see student A is developing in this area, is ready to develop in this area. So I think the most important results that we get are on a lower level. I'm not diminishing this. I wish I had an answer for you. I guess all I can say is in these areas that we've highlighted, we are above the national mean.
So I guess part of what I'm wondering is, I know in terms of the ELA scores, we're looking to see, partly we're hoping to see that both with our new reading program, which of course we wouldn't see that influence yet, but with the ECRI that's been in place for a few years now, how is that impacting our scores? Are the kids doing better than they were previously? So how do you make that judgment if you don't know what a significant difference is, I guess is what I'm wondering. Do we have a way of looking at that?
So I believe it was last spring when we delivered the results, the spring results for math. I believe it was a 70% growth was it grade 3, or we did see growth. So when we do this report later on in the year, I think we're going to be able to make that connection. MAP doesn't allow, there's not a lot of flexibility with the analytical tools to make a link between one year to the next. But when you're doing it within a year, you have a little bit more that you can play with.
I just want to read, if it's okay. Sure. Can I just reiterate one thing? I just want to reiterate one thing that Dr. Riccadelli said beautifully, by the way. And Mr. DeLeva is going to cover the reports again, but I just think it's very crucial that the importance of MAP data is to inform instruction. It is very difficult, it's clunky to do this district-wide view because you're not going to really be able to do that dive that maybe you're talking about. The importance of MAP data for us as educators, both administrators and teachers, is to have that information to inform instruction, to help, which I don't want to, Mr. DeLeva is going to talk about how we're using all of this data. So I don't know if maybe we want to maybe press pause and then come back to it, because The other pieces with the emergence of the early literacy screening tools, we've also brought in DIBBLES, which, as I informed the community and parents, K and 1 are using that explicitly for early literacy screening. And we're not starting MAP until grade 2, which is more appropriate when we're really looking at how they're applying those skills and when the comprehension comes in. So I know we may not have answered your question wholly, but maybe if we could like keep going and then we can get to the nitty gritty. Thank you.
Mayor, can I just ask one more question?
Yes,
before we
Member
move on? I thought the value of MAP was that you could connect performance year to year. And now you're saying that's not true.
You,
Which is it?
so you can by student,
Uh-huh.
but so I think, Mr. DeLeva, correct me if I'm wrong, doing it, linking from, say, spring of 2023 to fall of 2023 on a large scale basis is.
Yeah, we were talking, it's like the funnel, so the district's the top of the funnel, and we are going all the way down to district, school, class. And I think the hard part is, we're just really getting to know this a little bit better. From spring to fall, what we've noticed is that there's been some inferences that some of the construction stops, and it's a little bit of a fine that's occurred. On a district level, I think the next slides kind of explain it a little bit better if I go into that. So on this slide, what we've done is the red is the national norm, and I think we're looking to see like where we're at. But I think, to the point, what I'd like to do is get into this. I'm excited when I get to my part because I don't have, I want to do the work.
Yeah, and I think the reason I'm asking, let me just like tell you why I'm asking. If that's true, then why are we crushing students and teachers under 3 iterations of this in a school year? The last of which comes like hot on the heels of MCAS. And then we're saying, well, it's not really like data we can use the next year anyway. And if that's true, like, why are we like testing for the sake of testing? I think is what I'm wondering about. Like, if there's value in like that carryover in terms of informing instruction, then I think it makes a lot of sense. But I feel like I'm sort of hearing like, either we're not using it that way right now, or it's not true. And I don't know which, but I'm just really trying to understand, like, there's a lot of testing that goes on. And I know that like, we can't just say we're not going to do MCAS. I get it, but it's a lot. Like, it's a lot of days of testing. And could the kids be actually learning something instead is my question.
So, trying to see where I want to begin with this. You are correct. And we've been having a lot of these conversations internally as well, because we want to make sure that we have the appropriate data to inform our instruction. Part of this, as we go along with the iteration of it all, there's the reason that I just spoke about why we are no longer using it for reading for K and 1, because DIBBLES is giving us, and some of the other things that we're doing with the QPS and additional screeners, that's giving us the information that we need. So not K, but grade 1 is we're using it for math because it's an important data point. We're also having conversations, and maybe Nicole can speak to it as well, around the validity for 10th grade, and because of MCAS and how much we are using the data. So we are having a lot of those internal conversations to make sure that we are using the data appropriately to inform our instruction. I think the piece of it is we can, just to go back to the way it's scored, it's all of the norm measures that and please correct me, that Dr. Riccadelli spoke about, but it also targets the exact time in which the students take it. So nationally, we're not going to be, our students are going to be scored against other students that took it within that time frame. So sometimes with the way our cohorts go, there are different blocks of time in which we can use the data based on when the assessments were taken. And I think the other piece that we're kind of growing with this program and with the data is also, we don't want to overtest students, but we want valid data that we can use to inform our instruction. And last year, there was a little blip because, again, this balance of not over assessing, but some of the EL students did not take MAP all 3 terms. And so what that makes it difficult for us to then use that data and say that the data from last year is going to be exactly accurate when we're looking at the growth of students, because it wasn't the same participants in each data set. This year, we are going to have all students participate in that so that we are going to have clear, clean data to be able to use.
Thank you.
So just moving on, so this this slide is really it's a depiction of the let me just go back of this. So we took a look at this data. This is a depiction really where you can see the red norm line, and then the same for, apologize. This is grade 6 to 12. So really, it's just a visual depiction of that first chart of data that we looked at. All right, moving along. So this slide, this is where several of us that got together, we looked at the data, and the full set of data can be found in the appendix at the end of the presentation. So it yields some some descriptive information about the variations in schools' grades and ethnic groups. And while there are many, many observations that we can make, what we decided to do here was just to highlight some of the ones that we saw that kind of stood out. So the first bullet here, it says in science, the mean RIT scores for all elementary schools, so all 4 elementary schools in grades 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10 across the district were higher than the national mean RIT score. So again, that is in science. We're just going to take a look at that. All right, so when we look at science, we can see here that, so in grades, grade 3, 4, and 5, we can see in science at the Brooks Elementary School, the school RIT scores are higher than the national norm. If we flip over to the McGlynn Elementary, we look at science, we can also see that they are above the national norm. And I know I'm going quickly here. I'm going to scroll next to the Missituck Elementary, looking at that green column, looking at science. We can see the same, where the school scores are higher than the national norm. And then lastly, to the Roberts, we see the same thing in the green column, where the school RIT scores are higher than the national mean. So again, it's not that we are equating the norm with excellence. It's something that we're taking a look at, and we can obviously see that our schools scored higher than that norm. Moving on to the second bullet, taking a look at the Brooks data. At the Brooks Elementary School, the mean RIT scores for ELA, math, and science in all grades were higher than the national mean RIT scores in those same content areas. So taking a look at that data at the Brooks Elementary School, you can see in the ELA column in blue, the school scores are higher than the national mean. The math scores identified in yellow are higher than the national mean, and the same for science in the grades that were tested. So clearly at the Brooks, we're seeing higher than norm scores. Going down to the third bullet, In grade 4 across the district, all schools had higher mean writ scores than the national norm writ in ELA and science. Not math, but in ELA and science. Math was close. I think there was one school that was off. So if we look at the ELA and science scores at the Brooks, okay, we already kind of took a look at the science, but we can see the ELA scores. At the McGlynn, we can see the ELA scores. At the McGlynn, the ELA and the science scores are higher. At the Missatuck Elementary, the same. And then lastly, at the Roberts Elementary School. So again, ELA and science. Okay. Next one. All right, the next bullet, the Asian, Black, White, and Latino subgroups in grade 2 with the Roberts all had a mean writ higher than the national mean writ in ELA. So with regard to, again, those subgroups, the subgroups that are available in the MAP test, we can see that the means in those different ethnic groups are higher than the national mean. Grade 2.
We knew you were going to ask that. Sorry. Okay. We're having an issue because what's pulling the student data is the Clever from School Brains is putting it into MAP. So we were able to get this subgroup data, but I'm trying to figure out why we're not being able to pull the other data, because School Brains does identify those factors. So we haven't been able to grasp at this yet. And again, I'm sort of jumping ahead in my part of the presentation, but we're also trying to get, which I think Ms. Galucci is going to bring up as well, a program that's going to kind of tie everything in together so that we can isolate that quicker. But the hope is that we can get that when we get to the fall, the winter time, but we weren't able to pull it from this report. Otherwise, we definitely would have put that in. Whatever the committee wants. Yeah. You're welcome.
All right, so we're just moving on. The second column on that page, at Medford High School, the school mean writ scores were higher than or equal to the national mean writ in ELA, math, and science. So if we take a look at the Medford High School data, we can see that. Moving on, at Medford High School, and that includes Medford Vocational Technical High School, the Asian subgroup scored higher than the national norm in ELA, math, and science. So this is,
yeah.
Okay, all right, this is the right slide. And we also can see that the white subgroup also scored higher.
Member Rousseau?
Thank you. I've been confused by this slide. It's come up a couple times now. When it says the national, that's the national of all students. And so I'm just confused why we would compare subgroups to all students, which make that comparison, sure. But I would like to know how our Asian students are doing to the national Asian students. I mean, because I guess this is, to me, seems like not terribly important data. I want to know how our Black students are doing compared to the Black students nationally, because that's why we even have subgroups. It's not to compare them to the big number for all students. It's to
Point of information.
Point of information, Member McLaughlin? Or, I would question that. I would ask if that's accurate. I think that it's important. I would agree that with Member Rousseau that it's important to compare subgroup to subgroup, but it is also very important to compare subgroup to regional and national, so that you're getting it cross sector of data.
Thank you. I didn't say that it wasn't important. I said it was not the only important thing.
That's correct.
So that wasn't a question, though. Point of information is a question.
Okay, so.
Anyways,
you.
so this slide does not give us the information we need. And I'm assuming NWEA map does provide that, or maybe they don't. So then I'm not sure what the point of this slide is.
We would have put it in. We were thinking the same thing, you know, as we did
Okay.
everything else. We just couldn't find those numbers on their website or anything to get that comparison.
So I guess I'm confused why they would provide us the ability to see how our subgroups are doing, but then also not provide any information about how subgroups are doing nationally. That does not seem like a reasonable thing for a product to provide. They must have those things because they are providing those delineated pieces of information to us. I mean, we didn't do these calculations. They came from their product. So they know how these subgroups are doing nationally. Whether they're willing to share it, maybe they have a reason for not sharing it, but I really feel like somebody needs to figure that out because it's just critical information. I mean, I feel like if we're not going to know that at all, anyways, I just think that this slide is definitely missing something, and somebody should call them up and ask them what the heck's going on because it's critical. It is certainly critical to know against the like these categories right here. By the way, these are Medford's categories. Where's the Medford 9th grade? I see national. There should be another column there for district also that covers all students. Right? Right, it should be on the same slide though. I mean, you know, these four Asian, Black, White, and Latino are all Medford numbers, right? Because nobody really wants to sit here and just discuss their data nationally. So all of those things averaged together based on the number of students, et cetera, would provide us what the district number is, which I think was on another slide somewhere.
Slide 8.
Thank you. Thank you.
you're going to hear from Mr. DeLaver in just a couple of minutes, the connection, actually a very real connection between MAP and MCAS that I think has a lot of utility for us, our students, and moving forward. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Mr. DeLaver.
Before I get started, I wanted to, this might be the last time I see some members, so congratulations on your service. Thank you for everything. And then welcome our new members as well to the committee as well. And also want to make sure that I do give credit to Dr. Riccadelli, Rocco Sierri, and Faiza Khan, because we've sort of all been, yeah, sorry, did I say Dr. Kia? I didn't say Dr. Kia, I apologize for that. Is it me? Do I keep hitting it? All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the help. Thank you. I'm wearing glasses now. I used to never have to do that. So, but to reiterate the point is that I think we use multiple data points, and MAP is just one of those data points that we use. Yes, we use MCAS. As Ms. Galusi said, we're using DIBELS on the upper grades. So we're trying to get a picture on that data, and we never really before delved as deep as we have before. And I think we're doing that now. Part of the work that I have been doing, and I'll get into it a little bit more later too, is I've been going and meeting with, it's been great, across the whole district. I've been meeting with teams of teachers and sort of reviewing their MAP and kind of coming up with plans. And then we're already excited to go into the winter season and then review that again. So on a level of instructional data, I think that's the bigger piece here. I know on the district data, it's kind of so broad, but I think when we funnel it down, it gets to be a little bit more inclusive and identifying things and making groups on students and talking about areas of focus and stuff like that, because MAP does identify that. So what you have here on this slide here is MAP actually has a predictor. So it takes the, what I have here is the third grade fall from ELA projection to what we actually scored on MCAS in the spring. So if you look here, we look for the little trends. We were hoping that, the red means not meeting expectations. The yellow, orange is more partially, and green is meeting, and blue is exceeding. And the hope is that that trend is pretty close. Obviously, there's a close trend, but we have a greater number of students that we're not meeting in third grade for ELA based on what MAP had projected. When we move to the next one, which is math, a different kind of story where it projected that we would not meet expectations greater in the fall, and we actually have less students that actually had done that, and we have more students that are exceeding expectations for third grade math. So we've done all the grades, but we've decided to make sure that we did third and eighth. 10th grade isn't pulling MCAS, but it is pulling SAT scores, so we've been using that a little bit.
Mayor, can I just ask a quick question?
Member Graham?
I'm looking at, what is this, third grade math. And it looks like the numbers on the left add up to more than 100.
Oh, you're right. It does look like that.
Because I was trying to figure out, like, it looks similar, but it's
You're
not.
right. Actually, I was looking at the ELA. It looks the same on that too.
Is there a reason for that?
So this is the graph I literally pulled from MAP. It came from the MAP report. So I'm not quite sure what is the story with the numbers. I'd have to double check. But right, everything should equal to 100, right? It shouldn't be.
Well, yeah, it's
more
just
than that.
hard to compare. Like, if this is a predictor, did we like meet the prediction, or did we do better or worse than the prediction? But you're never going to meet the prediction if you're not on the same scale, right? Because on the right, 41, 32, 95. Yeah, the one on the right adds up. So
Yeah.
like you can't eyeball this and say we were on target or we weren't. And I can't tell if it's because the left adds up to more than 100 or if we're really on target or not.
So-
It would be great if you could get an answer to that
Yeah,
question.
what I'll, obviously not now, but I'll follow up and relook at the numbers and see what came up on the predictor slide to see what pulled up, and hopefully I can get to 100 and figure out what the problem is. So then moving on as well with the 8th grade spring ELA scores in comparative to the in the fall compared to what we did in the spring. I mean, I'm looking just at the bars, but again, if the numbers don't add up, but you know, again, when the number goes higher, I'm looking at the trend on the red. I mean, we want more students not, we don't want more students not meeting expectations. We want more on the blue side of exceeding expectations or meeting expectations. So when I look at that kind of trend, those are the things that I'm trying to talk about when I'm meeting with teachers as well, when they look at it from a grade level or a school level or anything like that. Your presentation is more on a grade level. But again, like we're talking about funneling it down. So again, when I move to math, same kind of idea. I want to see greater greens and blues and less partial, but I think across the district, the partial is the bigger number that's there on every slide. So we want to try to work and make sure we get those students into meeting.
Yeah, I think on the 8th grade one, the charts both add up to 100. So is what this is telling us that MAP predicted we would have better MCAS results than we actually had?
We're looking at the math one, I'm sorry.
8th grade, slide 16.
For ELA, right?
Yeah, ELA.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So, yeah, so exactly. That's exactly what it says. Based on the MAP scores in the fall, it was saying that this is, if they were to take MCAS at this point, this is what they would have received. But then when you look at the actual MCAS that did happen in the spring, that's what occurred. So yeah, that's not the story we're looking for. We want to try to, again, move more greens and blues.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So when we do data analysis, and again, I want everyone to think of the funnel, where really the work that has been done has been working on a classroom level at each school. So I'll meet with the 3rd grade, for example, at the Mississauga. I was glad. I did it this time. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Like I'll meet with the 3rd grade teachers. I'll meet with the 3rd grade special ed teachers, and we try to drill down things from the reports that I'm going to show you. So we do a class report, we do some sorting, we then drill down on a student level. We talk about doing interventions and how we would group students into reteaching or as well as enrichment as well. So, you have two sides to the coin. We also want to make sure that our top students are getting what they need, right, with the win, as well as the students that need certain instruction to make sure that they're at the level of everybody else that's there. So the differentiation that goes on. And then we use a data protocol. So there's a data protocol that's in that link that sort of was developed by myself and a couple others, so that we're also using time, because time is a commodity when we're meeting with the teachers. And I want to thank the committee, because I don't think if it was the change for the elementary side, they actually have time to meet, because they always had that 1:30 difference. And now that they're following the same schedule as everyone else, I can plan on where I'm meeting with everybody. And kind of we make observations, we make certain inferences, and then we come up with action plans. So coming around the next time around in the winter, that's where I'm going to use the data and meet with them again to kind of say, okay, now we have the growth from fall to winter, because we don't have that right now. We only have the fall at this point in time. So I want the fall to winter to see where our students are at moving forward. And again, we do that comparison of MCAS as well, so that they can look at it. They actually have a separate sheet that was created by myself over the summer. So they've been kind of comparing points on their own when they're working with their students. So if you look at this potential, everything's redacted and it's just a general report. But this is the first report that the teachers go into because they go right into their classrooms. And again, I made the colors very similar to the other reports where greens and blues, we're doing good, yellows and reds, we really need to drill down and see. We tend to sort that and we try to look at, what the needs are of every student, meaning the blues and the greens as well as the reds and the yellows. So when I move into the next one, oh, a little delay there, and I didn't touch any button. The quadrant chart obviously is what we're always looking for, which is growth and achievement. Now, what this is doing is this chart is taking previous student scores and making a growth chart from that. So you have students that are in the upper quadrant there. That's their achieving and growing. And you have students in the yellow down below that are showing high achievement. And a reminder that with that, it's possible that students are achieving, but they're already achieving at a high level, right? So that they're going to end up staying stagnant, right, at a level. And even though we want everyone in the green, some people are already high scored, and that's why they're down in that ever. But again, each one of these dots, you can unclick and identify student's name. So that's what the teachers do, and they look to see where are our achievers using the MCAS data that I've given them already and this data to see what they can do to group students, because they do have a period within the day called their win blocks. Elementary uses them on a literacy basis, but the middle schools have them, and even the tier 2 intervention that we can do at the high school of identifying students that could use it. You have to pick and choose. Unfortunately, you lose in exploratory to get that, but at the same time, if you're looking at your predictor, it might warrant that you need to do it. And as we talked at the MCAS meeting, and I'm looking at Member Rousseau, we don't want to have a you're not graduating scenario. So again, using not just because you didn't do well on MCAS, but using this data as well as where they're at is a way for us to do some rescheduling. This is another way that they regroup as well. So MAP goes by areas of instruction. And so if you look at it, and it's a little fuzzy, I know, but it's for algebra, right? Algebraic thinking and number and operations. So these students are put into groups by their RIT scores. So again, now a teacher already sees, okay, these students are here. I need to work with these students here and figure out what I need to do in order to get them to move over in their instructional area. So when I look at this report with them, our goal is to see everyone start to move more to the right from there. This is probably my favorite report that I go with the teachers, because this is the individual student report. So from that class report, what you're able to do is really drill down on a student individually. And if you look a little bit in the middle there, you can see with this particular student, they have identified suggested area of focus, and they identify a student's strength. So here in math, this particular student really has some number and operations, and I've shown teachers, if you click that, it gives the skill where the student is at and what they need to develop to improve that area of focus. On the other hand, the operations of algebraic thinking, they've met a lot of those criteria because they're above the mean of where they had scored. So that's how that gets identified. But again, when we're talking about win and regrouping, teachers are now looking at these charts, and they're also grouping their students because they want to do more of number and operations with certain students, while, for example, with this student, if they were go to more of an enrichment piece, on operations and algebraic thinking.
Just add something?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is a report that some parents do request. I'm not gonna touch it. And I think it's, I mean, what it looks like one page here, but it prints out to 32 pages and it talks with the development in each one of these areas. So there's a lot of information that is yielded. So again, I will go back to on the individual student level, there's a lot that is yielded with the map information. I think, you know, on the district level, you know, I'm sensing some frustration, and you're not alone, because it's just not as advanced as it is on the individual student and classroom level.
Yeah, and even if you look at this report as well, you have your growth, so that quadrant chart, like this student would be placed in the quadrant chart that's listed, but also tells us that this individual student would be partially meeting expectations based on their RIT score on the fall right now. But the hope is when you take the winter, that we see an improvement on that moving forward. So these student reports are really the crux of what we're doing with teachers to kind of see where we're at, and we're doing the data protocol to see like, okay, let's make an inference, let's see what can we do with instruction, how can we readjust some time, because again, time seems to be the biggest factor in a lot of things.
Yeah.
Member Rousseau?
Thank you. Thinking about that quadrant chart, are teachers looking at that?
Yeah.
So a student that might have like a whole pile of relative strengths and a major weakness could show up in that top right quadrant. And if I'm a teacher and I've got a bunch of students that I've got to focus on, I'm not clicking on that student because there's only so many hours in a day. How do we make sure that, you know, because this is one data point is a student, how do we make sure that we don't have, I'm sure when teachers are receiving students into the middle school, into an algebra class or something, and then they find out that, why does little Johnny not know how to do this very basic thing, even though he got great grades and knew all these other concepts? It feels like that's a story we hear about when kids go off to college and they can't do some, frankly, basic things. And I just feel like this average as a single data point for a student can seriously hide major deficiencies. Or is that average not really an average, but is some kind of other NWEA map calculation that prevents that?
I mean, I can let you answer it, but I mean, so it's kind of what I said initially, that I think there are multiple data points that we use. Like, this is what I want more throughout the district, that this is not the only driving force. There are other data points that we would use to identify that stuff. At the middle school level, for example, there is a block that's given on a Wednesday, I remember it because AJ would know, that we would utilize this time to identify students that are getting their enrichment and getting what they need at that point in time. Called it RTI, now it changed all the way to win, which makes more sense, which is what I need. So the hope is that if we continue across doing these practices, that that person doesn't get missed from there. But like I said, multiple data points. You just mentioned student grades. Well, student grades also have to match out what a student actually understands and can produce. So therefore, I think that using those kinds of points kind of do it. My hope is that we don't miss that student. But I mean, sure.
If you look, I also just, because your question, I think, was specifically to the map data. And
Yes.
this is my favorite report as well, because it's also interactive. So you can see that the way they've categorized math, this student is scoring in the yellow. You can see that reading is a strength and science is a strength. But because the yellow is highlighted, there are a couple pieces here. So if you look at the top on the yellow, it's going to give the teachers the possible RIT span of where this student should land. So I know it's super small print, I'm sorry, but it says between 184 and 190. So you're right, the average score, RIT score for the student is 187. But if you then look in the middle column, as Mr. DeLeva was talking about, but these instructional areas, those are the ones that also give the specifics to, so like 175 for number and operations, that's lower than the RIT should be, right? So this student is fine. Measurement and data is a strength. Geometry, well, operations and algebraic thinking is a strength. Measurement and data and geometry, the student is where they need to be because they're within the, or really close to the RIT score. But because number and operations is a suggested area of focus, as Mr. DeLeva said, if teachers click on this, it does bring up all the standards, all the strands. It will give teachers where to start in terms of an instructional area of focus. And there's a lot on teachers. Like, teachers are rock stars because what they have to do is meet their students' needs, and this is where the tier 2 piece comes in. So Mr. DeLeva spoke about the win block at the middle school level and at the elementary level, but if we're looking at math, a lot of that tier 2 time, there are multiple ways that the tier 2 time comes in. You heard Principal K talk about ST math, and we're trying to encourage that is done for 10 minutes a day. That's an additional piece. It's normed the way Lexia Core 5 is, and it's all, it's language free. So it's all conceptual mathematical problems. So it's going to meet the students where they are, and it's going to push them where they need to be, or kind of adapt to where their areas of strength and challenge need to be. In addition to that, most math blocks are structured in a way at the elementary level so that the lesson is given and then there's a small group time component, which some may refer to as centers, some may refer to it as small group instruction, but the students, if we look at even the scores or whatever, the students that are in that blue and in that green, they can be more independent during that time, but the teacher may have a small group of students that are going to need that like sheltered scaffold to be able to work on their areas of focus. That help?
It helps, but you said something just now that was sort of partially my point.
Yep.
There's only so many hours in a day for teachers. We just heard that at the Andrews, 2/3 or 70% of kids made the honor roll. I'll go out on a limb and bet that means a lot of kids, when we looked at this quadrant chart, were in that big green section for, let's pick math.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm worried about is it's quite reasonable for teachers to be focusing on students in these other quadrants more. These are the students that are performing. These are the students that are growing. You've got so many hours or time in your class. Who are you going to put more attention on? You're going to put it on the students who need more help, which is rational and reasonable. But these are one dot representing the students. You could be a rock star with these huge scores in some areas of math and then have some major deficits that are just not relevant to what's going on. And you can just skate through with your A and sitting in the green. And then when you go up to the next grade, this happened to one of my children who went into an honors math class, and it was because of the pandemic. It wasn't for any other reason, but there were whole sections of math for which the student couldn't perform, none of them, frankly. And while that's a different kind of situation because it was most of the students, I'm just worried about how if you have only so much time in the day and you're looking at this quadrant chart as your starting point for where to focus, you're not clicking on your students that are high performing, high growth already. And this is an average that will mean that you have, we put a billionaire in this room, average all of our incomes, things look great. We're not all making $100 million a year. So I just worry about the word that averages can really cause skewing within the individual student as well. And maybe there's somebody that makes sure that every single one of these students was inspected at some regularity from this chart. I don't know if that's your team or the principals, or does this pop out a report that says, hey, this teacher in math, there was never once did anybody inspect this report for this student this year. I mean, I don't know. That's after you've clicked the student, though.
No, but they have data based on their students. So yes, our process, because you're identifying students of meeting and exceeding as well as partially not. But the hope is that you're using that, and then yes, you have to get deeper. That's in class, and I know that's a lot. But I also think it's beneficial to know where everyone's at, so that informs your instruction.
Oh, I don't doubt that. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry. To your point, Mr. Russo, Member Russo, if we look at English for a minute, we look at literary text versus informational. Those are two of the categories. I know we have math on this slide right now, but what we've done in our department at the secondary level and will do at the elementary level and have as well is, let's say we have a student that's very strong in literacy, right? Literary text. Strong and informational, but there's a discrepancy there, right? So we're seeing, okay, we need to do more work in informational, even if they're not, you know, on the low side. We've looked as a department at those discrepancies to say, we need to build more muscle for informational text, for example. So it's not so much your low achievement, high achievement as it is as a group, like as an 8th grade group, let's say, that we see those discrepancies and we're able to kind of target it. Looking into like the depths of the curriculum. Does that help at all? And that's just one example. If I even look at grammar, and I mean to cut you off, but like we look at grammar and where we have some struggles, what can we do to build that strength? Whether it's a higher achieving student on that or lower or struggling.
That does help. I mean, I think that sometimes we've heard tonight that it was the individual student was the strength of a lot of this reporting. And now we're kind of back up to the middle, the curriculum.
Yes.
And obviously, I think that that makes complete sense what you're describing, and that's great to hear. But if all this testing is about the individual student, then I'm interested in knowing that every individual student's report is looked at by every single teacher.
Yes.
No matter whether the student is sitting up there in the top corner green and the teacher has 20 other students in the bottom quadrant who need a lot of time and focus because, you know, a kid could not know how to deal with money, for instance. One of my children, math was fine, but then when the report came out, turns out they didn't know anything about money, which, you know, for those of us that can just, well, that's just, you know, percentages. So I just worry about, and I think the teachers would worry about receiving students with major gaps that are missed because the report is an average for the whole individual student, which is not, you know, it's not how you teach new concepts. You need, in math in particular, you need those basic concepts, all of them. There's no like all optional ones. And so I'll stop because I've gone on too long. Thank you.
Yes, Member Hayes.
So I'm looking at slide 21, or at least the numbers 21's class breakdown by instructional area. I would assume or hope that teachers would be looking at this, that really gives you each student by, you know, it's not going to break it down maybe as far as you were suggesting, Member Rousseau, but it does break it down by the areas. And it seems like that gives the teacher some good information about where. Now, what I don't understand on this, and I wanted to ask was, is there a score that the teachers are looking for as the kind of, we'd like to see most of the kids falling in this score range. And so kids who are below that, we want to look at whether they're struggling, you know.
Middle is the middle group.
Mm-hmm.
trying to get our students home direction. Because that is the average, but that is the middle. But it varies by class by class. So like the one class.
Well, that's problematic though, isn't it? We've got to have some standard that we're trying to get the kids all to. And if it's going to vary by class, I mean, I know, so I guess where I'm struggling again is with, I think Member Rousseau hit this a minute ago. We keep talking about the real value of this is at the individual student level or maybe even the class level. And I think that's wonderful. I mean, I remember before I was on school committee, when you were first talking about this assessment, I was like, this is great because MCAS is no longer usable in that way and hasn't been for a very long time. So it was a real gap in having an assessment that we could use in that way. But I'm confused. I find myself, I feel like we are kind of toggling back and forth between the top of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel when we start looking at, you know, when we say something like, well, it's going to be different for each class, but we need some top level, just one other quick thing. And then I guess I'm hoping also to get a better understanding of why are we even being, well, let me rephrase that. That's not a nice way of putting it. We taught, the highlights were all really about scores and at a higher level. Do you use those? Do you use, when you see that there's a difference between the subgroups, how does MAP help you use that knowledge, or does it? And if it doesn't, then I don't know, is it worth even spending time talking about it? And do we have something else that helps us then at that level? So I guess that was a lot of questions rolled up into one, but I do feel like this discussion is kind of going back and forth, and between the top of the funnel and the narrower end of the funnel, and it's hard for those of us who aren't using this consistently or understand it as well as you do to kind of tease out those differences and understand how this test is really being used.
The only thing I was going to clarify about the reports is that they're all aligned by the skill or the standard. So how teachers, or what reports teachers are using, is going to be based on what they're looking for their instruction. So the student profile report is going to give that individual breakdown so that teachers can see, okay, because math units, math lessons, math modules, they're focused on specific skills and standards. When those, and a lot of them are cyclical, right? So students, sometimes the intent of the lesson is just for exposure, and sometimes it's mastery. But having the individual in the student profile sample of where that student's strengths are, the teacher is going to be more informed when that topic comes up, to then be able to, when you look at this one, you can do this by the skill, by that target. So then when that lesson comes up, teachers can then take that skill and say, where did the students fall within that range? Because this is where I am, and this is where I want to target my instruction. So it's just it's different utility for each report.
Mayor. Member McLaughlin? Yeah, thank you. So it sounds to me like that this is a differentiation tool. Is that accurate?
Yes. It's a nice
Okay.
way of putting it.
So exactly,
you.
it's a differentiation tool. So, which is great, because I couldn't agree more that I think that, the district and most districts need a lot of help with differentiation and personalized learning. So to that end, in addition to the teachers sort of being able, and the data being able to tease out the differentiation that's needed, what are we offering around professional development to help support our staff around how to differentiate, which I think is, again, the gist of a lot of what we're hearing in this conversation.
Huge. And I think that's something that's going to be growing, because I think even from where we started with MAP to where we are now to where we need to be, I'm going to just review in a little bit about the instructional, and I don't know where we are. I guess we can skip around.
Mayor, may I? Yeah, Member McLaughlin, then Dr. Edward Vincent.
Yeah, and I guess that in terms of the differentiation tool too, that's why I think it's so critical when we're disaggregating the data that we're seeing the subgroups, right? Because if we're talking about, MCAS, for example, and we know what our, for lack of a better word, because I hate the way that it's phrased, but lowest subgroups, right? So if we're not teasing out those subgroups for differentiation, then that's part of the issue, right? So like, we really need to be able to look at that data to be able to disaggregate. So, and I think that's part of what I'm hearing from Member Rousseau as well, in terms of, looking at the individual student, but sort of being able to differentiate. So we're not just talking about differentiation of curriculum, we're talking about differentiation of data as well. And that's really what we need to be able to use to be able to implement the practice of differentiation, right?
Well said.
Okay. Thank you, Member McLaughlin. I just wanted to restate, as I was listening to the conversation that was being had, when I think about the MAP assessment data, it was said earlier at the beginning that this truly is a tool that should be used by the teacher to help inform her instruction. To Member McLaughlin's point, how she's going to differentiate with students. I received this exact same parent report for my own child who's in elementary school. And when I've had my parent conference meetings where they pull out they talk about the quadrants, but they also end up saying, these are the areas where your child has strengths, and these are the areas where you need to continue to, monitor and work with your child. And so Lexia, ST Math, those, where the grade my daughter is currently in, everything is online for homework. So it's, part of it's Lexia, part of it's math, part of it's iReady, and they are monitoring the progress. And earlier on, I believe it was Dr. Riccadelli talked about how some of these supportive programs like ST Math, they adjust Lexia, they adjust to where the child, if you're doing well on the assessment, then you will continue to do well. They make the adjustments on an individualized basis. So what is, I almost feel like where we're getting a little caught up is that, yes, a teacher is able to look at that quadrant graph and see where her whole entire class falls, but she also is able to drill down and see how each student is performing. And before in Medford, we never had a system or an internal assessment system where we could monitor students' progress across the schools and have it be normed data that we were referencing or using that. So I do feel like there is a place for NWEA MAP to support instruction and to help teachers be able to say, oh, I am going to need to spend a little more focused attention or do another mini lesson or a reteach because I had so many students that struggled with the concept, or the opposite. Wow, my students are doing fabulous with operations and algebraic thinking. So that's not an area. I can share that data with the students, congratulate them, say, pat yourselves on the back. We need to spend a little bit more time on measurement and data or number and operations, and really target it that way. So this is just to really share with the committee, because initially the committee, did ask for demographic data, EL data, special students with disabilities data. So trying to pull as much data as possible to just share on a global level to say this is where the district is. But in the opening, when the RIT scores were shared to show where is Medford Public Schools in comparison to the nation. And for the most part, we're on par. And in some areas, we're outperforming the national RIT scores, and in other areas, we are not. The MCAS data that was shared, where it kind of gives you the predictor of where they think you're going to perform, And then we don't find out until we actually take the MCAS. So I feel even that predictive aspect of the NWEA map is really beneficial, because yes, they're saying what students are not meeting expectations, what students are exceeding expectations, and then the students that fall in the meeting and partially meeting. So it gives you a ballpark. It's not set in stone, but at least you do have an idea of the direction that you're moving in for the time being. So I just wanted to say that this really is a tool that should be used and is being used at the school level by the teachers, and it can be shared with parents during report card conferences, during SST meetings. Data might even be taken into some of the IEP meetings or EL meetings, progress report, monitoring on English language development. But I just wanted to stress that this is a tool to help us better gauge where our students are at. Thank you.
And I think we're going to be wrapping up. So Member Graham.
Thank you. I just wanted to offer maybe a suggestion about, like, I think part of what's happening is there's too much data at the wrong level of detail for this audience. And so while I would expect other audiences to sort of need and want various like components of data in here, like it's not actionable for this group. So I just wanted to share like a couple of thoughts, and maybe like this can help inform the next presentations. And it's just these are just my opinions, but there's several slides about data observations, and they only talk about the good ones. They only talk about the places where we're exceeding. And as we were sitting here, I went through all of the appendix charts. And my observations are that our Black and Latino students are below the national average across the board, all schools, all topics, not all places, but lots of places. In addition to that, at the McGlynn Elementary School, there's something happening in grade 3, ELA, math, and science. All subgroups are sort of noteworthy. At the Missituck, math and science aren't noteworthy. That means like beyond our Black and Latino students, as I talked about being a high level like overall norm. At the Roberts, it's math. At the Andrews, it's science, and at the McGlynn, it's definitely science and ELA. And so when I look across that, like what I would like to see in the future is like, I absolutely think we should celebrate where we're successful, but I'd also like to see like, what are the 5 to 10 things where you all are like, these are the things that we saw and this is what we're doing about them. And so for example, if it's like a particular grade level at a particular school, like there's an intervention there. And so I think what we want to know, I'll speak for myself. What I want to know is that you all know what those flash spots are and that you are like working immediately to address them. And then in the next presentation, you can come back to us and say, we talked about these flash spots, here's what changed. So if it were my presentation, I would cut out a lot of the detail that's particularly around like the digging into the student dashboards. I think that's super cool and interesting, but like without having access to the tool to be able to do that, I think it suggests more questions than it answers for us, or at least for me. What I would rather see is like, what are those trends, good and bad? What are the interventions? And then just the appendices. And I would make every single one of these charts a heat map. So you can see green, yellow, red, students who are below the national average in which spots, green, who's above, and then who's like right on the line, either like a little bit above, a little bit below. And then you can look at it and visually, you know, like there's a lot of green on this chart, or there's a lot of red on this chart, or look at the red, it's all in the same column and across all of these things. So we haven't done enough to move that. Like, I think there's some like simple visual cues in addition to like putting the district-wide number on each of the charts. I think that would also be helpful. But I would streamline everything to like highlights, problems, interventions, here's what we're doing, here's what's changed, and then here's your appendices, and we don't have to keep you here at 9 PM, sort of answering questions that I think in fairness, like, there's nothing we can really do with the information you're providing us, except that, like, as we're going through this and we have questions, like the data needs to be cleaned up so that things add to 100, that all of the subgroups are available, like, that would be my focus for this as you go forward. And I think, like, even in terms of like the district-wide priorities, like, you know, learning walks, et cetera, I think we know all of those things. We've heard you talk about them all the time, but like, I looked at it and I was like, what's going on in middle school science? And like, we have a new curriculum there. Do we have a problem or is something else going on? Like, I think I would want, but I think you can be much more targeted if you're talking about, here are the top 5 things that we're working on district-wide at the district level, with an assumption, I think, from all of us that yes, you're meeting with grade level teams. Yes, teachers are using this tool. Everybody's like doing their like leveling of work. But like, I think what we want to know about is, in the aggregate, are we providing the right support to classrooms, to teachers, to students? And I think using some of the aggregated data is actually the way for us to know that. But I think we're a little bit all over the detail map tonight. And I think that's why everyone's sort of eyes are drooping and I think everyone's sort of feeling frustrated, or at least that's sort of my takeaway. But I think those small changes would make a big difference in terms of like how we can have a productive conversation about it. Thank you.
Mayor?
Member Hayes?
I'll be brief. I 100% agree with everything Member Graham just said. In terms of presentation of data in general, I would say the same thing. I would apply everything she said to MCAS presentations, to any, you know, any presentations you do of data. We need to hear where things are going well, yes, but we need to hear, as Member Graham said, the areas where things aren't going well and what you're doing about it, because that's where we're going to make growth. 1% ahead of the national norm doesn't tell us anything, you know, if we don't understand where we're not meeting the norm, or where we're not meeting our personal goals, and what we're doing to try to get there, because that's where we want to know what the growth is going to be. I would also like to add that in terms of this, the piece of the how classroom teachers use it, I'd like to hear from a classroom teacher or several classroom teachers at different levels. I'd like to hear them explain how they use it. They're the ones who are using it. It would be really helpful to have them walk through, whether they come to a meeting or whether they create videos, however you want to do it. I think that would be really helpful for us to understand, since again, that was the initial reason for purchasing this assessment and using it district-wide, was to give teachers a tool that they could use to help their class, to help in their classroom. So as much as it's wonderful to hear all of you try to explain it, I think hearing it from the source, hearing it from the people who are using it would be really helpful.
If there's no further questions, I don't know if you have it, you want to wrap it up?
I just want to acknowledge, because I think that the input and feedback is not only much appreciated, but we also agree. So part of the work that Paul's now working on is digging into a lot of this data at a much more deeper level, so that he will be able to provide the trends and the pieces that you're talking about to school leaders and to department leaders, so that they can then have those conversations with the leaders who are doing also the continuous work. Paul is meeting with teachers in common planning time and team meetings and staff meetings to go over that, but it's the whole entire district. And so the principals and the department directors are doing that work on a consistent basis. So making sure that we're providing them that drilled down data is something that's happening right now, because we agree and we did see those trends, which is why we've shared those trends, because it is something that is on our radar that we are working towards. And part of that work is going to be the cross-reference of students, once we have that drilled down data of the supports that are currently in place. The superintendent mentioned about the SST meetings that have maybe already happened, the support plans that may have already been created, or the ones that need to be updated and created to make sure that we are meeting the students' needs. But I do appreciate your input, and we'll make sure that we include all of that feedback in the next presentation.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We do not have any presentations of the public, nor continued business, new business, or reports requested. We do have a number of condolences, unfortunately. Thank you for bearing with me. The Medford Public Schools lost 2 giants this Thanksgiving week. Former Medford Assistant Principal Stephen Maskell and physical education teacher Paul McEwen. Assistant Principal Maskell was one of the first African-American administrators appointed in the district. He was also a history teacher, track coach, and mentor to many during his service at Medford High School. Mr. McEwen was not only a physical education teacher at Medford High School, but also served as a trainer to the Mustang football team and was the advisor to the Mustang M Club. Your guidance will be greatly missed. The members of the Medford School Committee express their sincerest condolences to both families. The members of the Medford School Committee express their sincerest condolences to the family of Carrie Ann Kelly Cronin, devoted mother of Medford Vocational Technical High School sophomore David Cronin. The members of the Medford School Committee express their sincerest condolences to the family of Irene Devaney, former elementary teacher at the Columbus School. The members of the Medford School Committee express their sincerest condolences to the family of Rita Lennox, aunt of former Mayor Michael J. McGlynn. The members of the Medford School Committee express their sincerest condolences to the family of Richard J. McHugh, Sr., father of the Medford Family Network's Heather Fuller. And last, the members of the Medford School Committee express their sincerest condolences to the family of Lawrence Marcus, brother-in-law of Cynthia Pearson, who is a paraprofessional in Medford's MEET program at the Brooks Elementary School. If we all may rise for a moment of silence. Thank you. Our next meeting is in 2 weeks here at the Alden Memorial Chambers, Medford City Hall, and in addition to Zoom, 6 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
By member Graham, second